Okay, it looks like we are on LinkedIn Live. We are here yet again for the last day of our Credit Captains Conference 2022. And looks like we've got some folks joining us, and we are very excited today. I'm Michelle Herman. I will be your host yet again. And we've got a great panel today. We've got Robin Walters, Maggie Romo, and Mary LeFevre, that all three of them have some fantastic experience. They've been around the block. They've been involved in all kinds of things. And we're really excited to have them share their perspective on the career challenges that they faced, how they've overcome them, and hopefully to give some insight into how do you utilize the knowledge from these ladies to help yourself in your own career and your own advancement, and kind of weather the storms, especially as the recession is hitting us. So we're very excited to have them on today. And we've got some folks, I think, joining on LinkedIn. I think we're live. And we've got, we got Corey Mullins, Nadia Gonzalez, Okmar Kowal. Let us shoot us a note in the chat box, folks, if you want to let us know where you're coming in from. It's always nice to know where our audience is located. And this is going to be, this is pretty much a conversation that we're having this afternoon. So if you have any comments or questions that you'd like to ask our illustrious panel of ladies here, please feel free to ask those questions in the chat box, and we'll incorporate that into our conversation. We would like to kind of keep these fun and lighthearted, easygoing. Corey's from Dallas, Texas. We got some more Texans. That seems to be a popular place. Fantastic. Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Fantastic. Just listening in. Fantastic. Oh, and Fort Myers, Florida. That's Caroline. Fabulous. Yeah, so we got Caroline Anderson with us today, and she and I are going to be tag team in this. And I think that, Coronado Island, Lisa Newberg is here. Thank you, Lisa Newberg. We're so excited to have you. You're always welcome at our events. Always good to hear your perspective. And in fact, Lisa, we need to have you on an upcoming panel as well. Lisa also has got an extensive career, and she's worked with companies all over the US and internationally, and she's got all kinds of crazy stories to tell. So yeah, we're happy to have you, Lisa. Akmar is from Toronto. Phenomenal. Great to have you guys. And I'm in the I was going to say the hellhole of Albuquerque, New Mexico, but in case anybody else is from Albuquerque, I don't want to offend them. So, but I think I'm going to be the only one. Home of Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, they actually have. I actually grew up here, and I just moved back here about a year and a half ago, and it is hysterical, the impact that Breaking Bad has had on this town. There's actually RV tours where you can like get on an RV that looks just like the Breaking Bad RV, and you go all around town, and you make all the pit stops. You go by the car wash, you go by the hot dog place, and you go by like Jesse Pinkman's house. It's pretty funny. So I haven't done it yet, but it's definitely on my list for the next couple months. It's looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. So yeah, a lot of people are not thrilled that Albuquerque is now known for meth, but hey, at least we're known now. So
There you go.
Right, and all PR is good PR, right? So okay, we've got a few more folks coming in, and we're right at the top of the hour, so we'll just give another couple minutes to see if we've got some more folks coming in. Give a little bit of more time to see if people join us. All right, looking good. And it looks like we've got a good batch of folks online. Okay, so let's get this started today. Again, my name is Michelle Herman, and I am your hostess for today's session. And we're very excited. We've got some ladies on the call today that have really some phenomenal experience, some interesting stories to tell. And we've got a set of questions that we're going to be going through, and we're going to ask these ladies' experience, their perspective on things. And Ruth Beck, by the way, before we get started, she said she wants to quickly say hi to Robin. You guys used to work together, Ruth Beck. See, Robin, you're famous. So what we're going to do, the topic today is basically what's the credit captain's journey to the top is what are all the things that have happened in these careers of these ladies that we've got on the panel, and how do you deal with these things, and how do you kind of get past some of these challenges and look forward to having a long, successful career in credit, which is certainly very possible. For those of you who have not heard about Hayako, please go to hayako.com, Hayako Academy. We've got an entire repository, over 150 courses broken up into 2,500 video segments, 2 to 5 minutes, that talk about everything credit and collections you can imagine. And it is kind of like the YouTube of credit, and it's all free. It's great stuff. And a bunch of downloads, templates, Excel spreadsheets, you name it. And we're doing something a little bit interesting with this Credit Captains Conference. This is the first program that we're launching that's kind of a mini certification. It's a skills-based certification. We encourage you to check it out. And when you're by involving yourself on this session today, we're going to have a discount code for you at the end of the session that to give you a 50% off the cost of this program. But we're real confident that this is going to be interesting, helpful information. We feel confident you're going to get a lot out of it. This particular course, Financial Statement Analysis, this is actually the first course in this mini certification is today, which is not exactly like financial statement analysis, but it kind of talks about credit in general. So this is kind of the kickoff to this particular mini certification. It's additional 2 hours of content. You'll get a digital credential. There's a whole bunch of information here, quizzes, templates, a calculator, all kinds of good stuff. So we encourage you to check that out, take a look at that. And we've got actually 3 certification sessions that we've launched this particular event here. And at the end of these, typically you'll get a certificate of completion, but with this particular program, when you go through the entire mini skill certification, you'll also get a certificate of achievement with a nice little skill badge that you can put on your LinkedIn profile. So it's kind of a nice way to keep things going. Okay, so let's kick this off. We have got some fabulous ladies with us today. And I'm going to ask each of the gals to just give a brief introduction and tell us a little bit about their background. And Magdalena Romo, why don't we start with you, Maggie? Why don't you give us a quick intro and tell everybody kind of what your experience is, and go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Maggie Romo, or Magdalena Romo. I am in California, Southern California. So I've been in California for over 30 years now. I started my credit management career back in 2006 as a deduction analyst. Started way from doing deductions all the way up, moved through different companies in distribution, and moved up to be the credit manager of LK Packaging over the last 16 years. It's been an interesting career through many positions. Just kept myself learning from great people like Michelle herself and Bob Schultz, who has been my professor at UCLA for a couple of courses. So, hi, everybody.
Fantastic. Robin, what about you?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending. I've been doing credit for more than a couple of decades now. Let's leave it at that. I work for both large 50 billion plus multinational organizations, and as well as all the way down to small family-owned companies. I have worked in distribution mostly, so I've distributed food, chemicals, pipe, and now seed in the ag business, which, by the way, is absolutely fascinating. I have the NACM designations. I have a CBA, CCE, ICCE, and CICP, plus an MBA. And somebody at one point pointed this out to me. I didn't realize it, but it's true. There are more letters after my name than in my name. I have an MBA in business. I studied in London, Switzerland, and Germany. Amazing experience. I've taught classes, and mostly for NACM, but for different venues, etc. I was on the board of directors at NACM, my local one at the time, which was in the Gulf States. And when I'm not working, I like to travel. I just came back from 2 weeks in South America. It was awesome.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We're very glad to have you. And I think, Robin, by the way, I think you win the prize for the most initials after your name. So
yeah, easily.
And we also have Mary LeFevre. Mary, you want to give us a few words about your experience?
Sure. My name is Mary LeFevre. I'm in St. Louis area. I've been here my whole life. I've been doing some sort of credit and collections for about 30 years now. I started out in a credit union, actually, processing credit applications, and then eventually moved into the corporate arena. Very, very shortly after that, moved into the corporate arena because I preferred that to consumer. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Fantastic. And Caroline Anderson is joining us too. Caroline, you want to give a brief synopsis of your career too?
I joined this credit world in 2001 and have been very fortunate to work with so many different industries and people like Mary. Mary and I have worked together off and on for many years in industry groups. And to me, I have felt very fortunate because with my work in the credit industry, it's allowed me to work with so many different industries, which I find fascinating. I used to do a group in the seed industry, Robin, and there's just so many different fascinating aspects of credit. Credit is credit everywhere, but each industry has their own little twists. So there you go.
Well put. Well put. Yeah, as you can see, folks on call, we've got really an incredible array of experience with industries, different positions. So it's everybody on the call today too. If you're interested in reaching out to the ladies on the panel, including myself, please send us a note on LinkedIn. Connect to us on LinkedIn. We're happy to connect, and this is kind of the benefit of this is growing your network and being connected to people who can help you out when you're in a pinch. And at the very least, when you run into them, the next time you go to a live conference, you can say, oh yeah, I remember you. So that's kind of part of the fun. So again, this is our session today about Journey to the Top. And we're going to talk, we've got a couple questions here. Actually, we've got several questions that we're going to go through. And so let's talk about skills. There's obviously a lot of layoffs that have been happening, a lot of, furloughs due to COVID. And everybody thought we were going to kind of get back to normal and everyone would get a job. And, but that some folks are having some challenges with that. And I think, we'd love to get, everyone's perspective on, what would you advise? What in your mind are kind of the most important skills to make sure that you're not part of the next round of layoffs? Robin, you want to go ahead and start us off on this?
Yeah, sure. First off, I believe that everybody should, one, have a valid passport so you can travel, and also should have an up-to-date, relevant, current resume, complete with references and references that know that they are your references, that they're listed on there. And always make sure that your skills are always up to date at any time. You could put on your resume that you've done financial statement analysis, but at the same time you're going, so wait a minute, what are the 3 statements that are most common? Know what you're talking about. Have those skills up to date. If you don't use them, go out to Hackle, YouTube, whatever, and brush up on them. Or take it off your resume if that's the case. Soft skills are going to be the key. Flexibility, having flexibility will allow you to be able to pivot. So if your department is downsized, then if you're flexible enough, you have skills that are transferable. You can easily pivot and transfer to those other opportunities. Be the person that volunteers for new projects, takes on new responsibilities, and be sure to highlight those things in your resume. I mean, don't lose the street cred for that. New experiences can even change your trajectory of your career. Be flexible on where you want your career to go. If this is where I've always wanted it to go, well, then maybe maybe it changes. Maybe there's something, because you don't know what you don't know. And so be flexible and adaptable. And this goes along with it. You can adapt. How well can you adapt to a new environment and pivot? For example, going from working in an office to working at home, how was that transition? And if it worked well, then you understand that you have ability to be flexible and to be able to pivot. Some other ones are like interpersonal and communication skills. Being able to communicate written and orally clearly and effectively is definitely a skill that's in demand. It might be more true. So with people that now, if they're working from home, it's a different kind of communication and conversations. So be sure that you have an appropriate on-screen presence for those live conversations, just like this. So you know what you look at like and what people are seeing. Please use punctuations when you're doing when you're having a conversation, whether it's IM or emails or something, to make sure that the communication is clear. What you intend to say is received. You know, there's an old adage that says, "Let's eat, Grandma," or "Let's eat, Grandma."
Let's eat, Grandma, right?
One comma, and Grandma's out of the picture. Okay. The other soft skills that I think are going to be important in this situation is creativity, ability to multitask, critical thinking, leadership skills, collaboration, just to mention a few.
I think that's great. Absolutely. Mary, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, Robin touched on a lot of them. Just to extrapolate on that, creating relationships with your teams and then with your customers, identifying the strengths and weaknesses of not only your team but yourself as a leader. What are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and what can I do to improve upon those? Creating relationships with the customers that you can take that knowledge and that the knowledge that you gain from that anywhere. Best practices, establishing best practices that work across the board. Credit is credit. No matter where you go, it's the same thing. There are obviously going to be, deviations depending on your industry, but having a standard best practices that you can pull from is absolutely necessary. Establishing rules for yourself and for your team, for your company that work. Don't just make a rule. Make a rule for a reason. And then, of course, without a doubt, results. The numbers are going to show it. An example of that is I just talked to a customer yesterday who took 3 weeks off. She is their accounting person. She took 3 weeks off, and she said it's going to take her almost 2 months to get caught back up again.
Wow.
Your numbers show. Yeah. So you understand, and that, you have to understand what the dynamic is, what changes are necessary in order to, where do you need to invest your time? Where do you need to invest your money if you have a budget? So that you can, obviously 3 weeks, she didn't have a choice. She had surgery. So how do you, what plan do you have in place for that so it never happens again?
Yeah, great points. That's amazing. So, okay, Maggie, I have an interesting take on this question for you, because you're a little bit more involved with the younger generation who is coming into credit collections, and from your perspective, not to say that we're old, but you're dealing maybe with some more folks that are 10 or 20 years younger than us. Not quite sure if that's the right amount, but when you look at, like, I think Robin brought up some great points. Like there's so many things that are looked at, and of course, millennials get such a bad rap, right? But I guess from that angle of what have you seen with your own peers, kind of that are in your age range, that are kind of still coming up in their career? What are the things that or have you seen some mistakes where people blew off stuff like punctuation and it got them in trouble? What are your thoughts on that from just kind of a younger generation standpoint?
So some of the things that I've seen is, like you mentioned, punctuation. So as a manager, I think you have to be able to adapt to this. You have to be able to adapt to the new generation where they want a work-life balance, and work with them where it's like, okay, you want to work, you want to be flexible with their times, you want to be flexible as long as it meets the requirements of the job and it meets the times that they need to be there. You got to know your staff, and you got to talk to them and understand where they're coming from, what their career goals are. So one of the things I did, I acquired a new staff, which is very young individuals. Actually, some of them even 15 years younger than me.
Wow.
So one of the things I said with them, and I spoke to them about their career goals. Where are you going? What is your plan? Why are you here? And based on that, I said goals. I was like, okay, let's set goals together. Let's sit together and set goals together. So one of the things I would give is, sit with your staff, know your people, understand what their flexibility is and what their willingness to learn is. Use resources such as Hayako University. I have my team take Hayako University courses. I schedule it. We have a source, an online source through Paycom, where I could upload the videos and, have them required to take the course. So I'll look at it first, and then it's like, okay, I think this would be beneficial for you because this is where you want to go in your career path. And I allowed them that time to learn. So I think giving them the skills and the flexibility and getting them acknowledged is very helpful, the new generation.
Hey, thank you for the plug there. We really appreciate it. But I think that's kind of like the cool thing about Hayako is that's exactly it, right? It's specific skills based that is lacking in a lot of situations. So yeah, and to your comment, you started touching about work-life balance, and is this just some abstract concept, or is this something that is actually achievable? And Maggie, since you kind of started on this, you want to throw your 2 cents in here on this topic?
I think it's achievable. Personally, what I do, and I am very, I'm a morning person. I am up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm a morning person, and I take 30 minutes to 40 minutes to schedule my day, journaling, calendaring it, putting my hours, blocking my hours. And I encourage my staff to do something similar, where it's like, okay, you have to work, you have to put in this time to work. So schedule your time, do your focus time, and then, schedule your life. Make sure you have a good description of what success is in your life, in your personal life, and a good description of what success is in your career path. That way you're focused on both, and you have a good life balance. So those are some of the skills I give my staff.
That's great.
And
Mary,
I use myself.
That's great. Mary, what are your thoughts on this?
So we touched on this when we were chatting beforehand. One of the challenges, and it's true, women, we tend sometimes to, we're challenged with finding that work-life balance, particularly if we're in positions of power or if we're in leadership roles, because we're responsible for everything that's happening. And this is a personal challenge of mine, something that I have been working toward, not successfully always. I preach work-life balance to my team constantly. Get off at 5:30, or get off at whatever time your day ends, and find something else to do. Speaking from a personal experience, I don't always do that,
Right.
But I do try, and I do. I think it's important because we do. If we get, like, I have one of my team is a little bit more like me, and she said the other day she'd hit a wall. Well, she's learned a lesson from that, right? So now she knows when she's getting ready to hit that wall, and she calls me and says, I need a mental health day, or I need to take PTO this weekend, or whatever. And we have to take care of ourselves. Nobody's going to do that for us. And as my mom has said for my entire life, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, the company will not go out of business. And that's something that it's simplistic, but it's true. We have to take that time, because we're only as good as the effort that we put in. And if like with my team member, she hit that wall, and she's not going to be as productive. So it's important. It's not always easy, but it's important.
Yeah, good for you to even recognize and encourage that response, right? Because a lot of people don't. A lot of people think it's just kind of a theory, but when it really comes down to brass tacks, it's like, well, we need you here. Robin, I know you've got some interesting experience with this topic too.
Oh, I do. Okay.
Yes.
Well, first of all, there's no magic formula that you can plug yourself into. It's got to be what works for you. And with things going on in this crazy, chaotic world, it's really the same things that you've always done, only maybe be a little bit more vigilant and pay attention to them and shut off when you need to. So if you burn out, you're not good for anything on either side of that balance. Your home and your work life, if you're burned out. But some things that I think maybe you can do to help with that is prioritize your tasks and create some boundaries. And I work from home, so it can be difficult to walk past the computer and not stop and just check something really quickly. And let me just respond to this or something like that. But I'll tell you, my house is set up so that my formal dining room is now my office and is at one end of the house, and everything else is at the far other end of the house. And it kind of works well. The couple of downsides is, number one, the kitchen is pretty close and the bathroom is on the other end of the house too. So, but you make it work. Having a hard stop at some point and could be throughout the day, hard stop for lunch if that's what it is. But a hard stop and be present, have your head in just one place at a time. Because then you're only giving part of yourself to everything that you give, and you need to give, and both sides of that deserve 100% of you. A lot of people will use their commute home to kind of decompress and kind of switch gears and go from boss, employee, whatever, to mom, spouse, pet mom, whatever it might be. Focus on the tasks and try not to be distracted to the point that you never complete it. Because this is me, you're involved heavily in a spreadsheet, and then all of a sudden the phone rings. Okay, you pick it up. Hi, yeah. Oh, yeah, let me shoot that over to you in an email. And you go to the email. Oh, let me respond to that one really quick. And you've completed nothing.
Right.
You've done nothing, except for pieces of everything, and that's not going to help anything. Yeah, I think I'm taking little breaks. If it's just to stop and play a game on your phone for 10 minutes, that can help you kind of just level set again. Delegate
disconnect a
if
bit.
that's
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah, delegation.
Have out of the office interests and things that can break that divide, create that divide. Keep an eye on your physical health issues, okay, because that's going to impact both sides of it, and stress will kill you. I mean, it literally will put you in a coffin. So that's, if nothing else, that's an incentive to find that balance, and plenty of sleep. It's one of my favorites. Second to travel, it's like sleep.
Yeah, I think you're right. And if you find yourself in a spot where you have zero outside life other than work, and it's so incredibly stressful, then maybe it's not the right job. And maybe that's a clue to move forward and do something else, which is hard. It's a hard decision to make, but it's one that can change your life for sure. Okay, so our next topic is about the power of networking, which I know is near and dear to all of our hearts. And talking about just, building a network in your industry with your peers, even in your neighborhood, right? Love to just kind of talk about what type of networking has really helped you in your career specifically. Mary, you want to give us your thoughts on that?
Sure. A lot of my skill set comes from learning from the NICM group that I belong to, where I met Caroline. I worked with a handful of people who had been in the industry forever. I mean, I counted one time, and I think there was, just at dinner one night, there was like 160 years of experience. These were people who had been where I was, and had gotten way past it. These are people that were at retirement age who had been doing it for a very long time. So I picked their brains. I would pick up the phone and call them, or they just offer suggestions. So some of, as Caroline can attest, some of them had no problem sharing their own opinions about things. And that was great because I absorbed it all. I learned as much as I could. And then they also learned from me because some of them were a little more old school, and old school is a little tougher, a little more, you being this big, bad, scary credit manager. And my approach is not that. And so they learned from me as well. It's really important to keep those lines of communications open. Also, the courses, like you talked about, I also do other things like I'll, simply Google a question, or I'll go to LinkedIn and I'll read some of the LinkedIn stuff that I can find. It's important to, when you're trying to learn, you're trying to be better at your job, that you work with people and you talk with people who know what you're talking about, people in our industry, people who understand, because we are, my daughter used this word and it's true, we're very siloed. There's usually only one credit manager in a company. And so sometimes it helps to have that network, because I could call Robin and say, hey, this is what I have. This is what I want to do. And maybe Robin could give me a different perspective on it.
Yeah, it's a great point. Maggie, what's your take on this topic?
Well, just to add a little bit more to what Mary just said, yeah, I am part of the NACM myself in California, so I do network with a lot of the NACM members, and I do see a lot of the experience, but not only experience within the credit management, but I also think networking outside of your career path of outside. So for example, networking with customers that are in the same industry, with coming from distribution, networking with the operations department, with other departments in your industry, to understand what their challenges are and how it can benefit everybody to learn from each other, and just keep networking. I ask a lot of questions, build my skills. So one of the things I researched was getting the credit management certification through UCLA, which is when I re-met Bob Schultz, which I had met before. Taking these courses and networking and getting to know people that have done this for a long period of time. Being a new credit manager, I had a lot of questions. So stepping out of my boundaries and talking to people, I was very shelter, I guess, as a new credit manager a couple of years ago, where it was just what I knew, and I learned from my processor, from the old credit manager, and I was afraid to ask questions. So stepping out of your fear and asking the question to somebody that's had the experience before. I think everybody's willing to help. You just need to ask.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And I love that whole trajectory of how you were involved at the UCLA extension course, where Bob Schultz teaches, I think, 2 of the classes in that certificate course, uses the principles of business credit book, and that you ended up at Radiance, and we
Right.
Oh, are you here in town? And so, me and you and Caroline all got connected, and with Jesus Romero from HPE. And it's like, that connection was so easy and so comfortable, right? Because it was like, oh, Bob, oh, that's great. Let's get together. And now here you are as a panelist on one of our sessions. So
Yes.
I think that's an excellent use of networking. Robin, what are your what types of networking events have been really most instrumental to you, and what would you recommend to people who are out there looking to expand their network as well?
Well, first of all, I think networking is truly vital, and sometimes you have to break out of your shell if you have an introverted type personality. I'm sorry, my screen just went black. If everyone needs to have a guy. It's like, I got a guy for that. You need to have that guy, and you need to be that guy. Don't forget to be that guy for someone, especially most of the people on here listening in are going to be seasoned, and you have experience, whether you realize it or not, and good, bad, or otherwise. And so to share that experience, I built my my network to have resources to people that I can reach out to, bounce ideas off, get direction, counsel, find new hires. I've helped people get jobs because I said, okay, I know your skill set and I know what you're looking for, and I'll put you together and you guys can take it from there. And the opportunities for me, as well. They're a support group, and to Mary's point, nobody knows what it's like to be a credit professional except another credit professional. I have a network, a support group of credit managers, and once in a while I reach out to them and I go, you're not going to believe this. I have to share someone who can understand it.
Yeah.
And it also, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it allows for growth opportunities. So where to start, I guess, some advice side is to get involved in credit organizations, locally, nationally, attend credit events. NACM is a good one for that, but I am part of industry groups across the western part of the country, and there's several of them, and I haven't found one that's better or worse than the other. So they all offer great networking, and to reach out to them and to be responsive as well, because it's two sides of the same coin. And maybe you start at home, you start with your own company, and volunteer for projects, find a mentor, be a mentor, get involved with workplace events, or start your own group. It could be a women's group, it could be moms, it could be knitting, or whatever it might be, to get interaction and to meet other people, because you'll never know what little piece of advice they can offer you, and that you can offer them that could change the trajectory of their career, their life, etc.
I think it's a great point. In fact, I'd love to have Caroline weigh in a little bit on this, because she's been involved in so many industry trade groups and has really seen the power of these networks that start and grow, and the bonds that are built over years, and kind of what that means and how people leverage it. Caroline, what's your 2 cents on this?
Well, I'm just a firm believer in industry credit groups and the relationships you make. As Mary was talking about, the people with experience in that particular industry. Yes, credit is credit, and I'll bet each industry does have their own separate little things. They're not little, but anyway, whatever. But industry credit groups, it's so important if you are in one to actually participate in it, share the information, respond to other people's requests. Don't just pay your fee and participate in it. And, it used to be in the credit industry, people really used their groups and they would bring up people underneath them in credit, because there was no place like High Echo to go for education. And so you were really dependent upon your peers. I think it got away from that for a while, but I think we're starting to see more of it. And I totally believe in it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most powerful tool that we have is to build that network. Almost, transcends just about everything else, for sure. That could be a whole separate topic that we talk about on the networking end. But we're about halfway through our session here, so we're going to move on to our next question. And this is really about professional highs and lows. We all have them, and the lows can be really crappy, but the highs can be fantastic. And what we'd like to get your insight on is when some of these lows happen and the highs, like how do you handle them? How can you leverage some of these horrible experiences to end up maybe coming out in your favor? Maggie, you want to start us off with that?
Sure. So how you can handle them, staying consistent. You have to just stay consistent with highs and lows. There's always, like you mentioned, Michelle, there's always going to be lows. Learn how to learn from your lows and stay consistent and keep learn from the mistake. Adjust and keep going, and the high will come. Adaptable, be able to adapt to new roles, new responsibilities. Me in my personal life, I had to start all over again from the bottom up, and it takes, that was one of my lowest points. And you just have to stay consistency and learn to love what you do. You might not love everything about credit, but learn to love some of it and enjoy it, and keep a positive attitude.
Good point. Mary, you want to weigh in on this?
Document.
Excellent.
Yeah. Keep your processes in place. Like Maggie had mentioned, it's true. Even when you do hit those low spots, you have suddenly a company shuts down or whatever it might be. You keep your processes in place because they're established. They work. We know that. But you do have to have some flexibility and pivot when needed. Take a look at your process. You identify a hole maybe in your process, and then you find another way to identify that red flag before it gets to that point. What other control can I put in place? What other monitoring tool can I use so that that never happens again? Keep your documents, keep everything. If you have a situation where, we are the gatekeepers of the cash, it is our responsibility to make sure that that money gets into the bank. So we communicate the best option. Sometimes we say to them, no, it's too high of a credit risk, but they decide to make a business risk decision that doesn't necessarily reflect what we would advise. It's fine. It's fine. That's part of what we do, right? We have to take risks in order to succeed, but keep your documentation. Make sure you know what you're talking about, and make sure that you keep all that information, because even in your lowest low, if you can say, this is where I was on this, then you know your process works.
Yeah, that's great advice. Absolutely great point. Robin, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that each of them are learning opportunities. It's a great opportunity to do a retro analysis and see what worked, what didn't, and how you can duplicate the wins and how you can avoid the lows, et cetera. And you need to celebrate them, so the highs and the lows, and to figure out what you can do. Like what Mary was saying, you found a hole. Okay, so that was actually value in that. And when you're feeling down, to treat yourself to something special, and for the highs as well, like a bubble bath, a massage that could just rejuvenate you.
Right.
And take a minute to thank those who helped you through it, and pay it forward. Be there to help somebody else when they appear to stumble, or you see them heading in a wrong direction or less desirable direction. And talking it out, that network again, talking it out can really help. Just get it out. I had see the glass is half full, basically. So I have a quick story. I worked for a very, very large company, $50 billion company. And every month I put together this report, and I had a boss that was very proactive in moving his people on in their career. So I would present this report to executive level management. Okay, so I was in a meeting presenting this, and the COO of the company, COO of a $50 billion company, called me Rhonda. He called me Rhonda through the whole meeting, and that's fine. I mean, it's close. Right. I knew who he was talking to, so it was fine. I really didn't think much of it. Came back to my desk after the meeting, and a little bit later, the phone rings, and I look at it, and it has the name of this COO. And I'm like, what do I do? Maybe it's not really him. Maybe it's just from his phone line. Anyway, so not answer that phone. So I picked it up, and it was him, and he apologized for calling me Rhonda. Then he explained that earlier in his career, he had worked with a credit manager named Rhonda, and he loved her. He had a great relationship with her. He admired and respected her, and I reminded her of him. So that was pretty cool. So then fast forward, happened to be at a random meeting together, and they gave us this little tent to put your name on. And so I put Rhonda on it. He told everybody that same story, but it was maybe a low, maybe a high, but it got me recognition.
Yeah. That's great. Name,
wrong, name, whichever, but he knows me and he knows what I did. And so it just kind of, I didn't really take it as a low, but he must have, because he called, and it just went in a really nice direction. And on the flip side, make sure you're doing that to people as well, that you're acknowledging them and seeing that glass.
Robin, I have to tell this very quickly. I actually got a job once because I was going through an interview, and the interviewer pronounced my name wrong, and I corrected him. And later, after I got the job, because it was one of those several interview things, he said that was the reason that I was passed on to the next phase, because he felt like if I was comfortable enough to stand to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, my name's Caroline, not Carol," or whatever, that I was assertive and to move me on. So you never know. You just never know.
That's
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Rhonda, for sharing that story.
Yes.
And Carol too. You're awesome.
Carol.
So this
Thank
is a
you,
good one
Michi.
too. When you know you all have been in management positions, you are in a management position. When you are looking at your staff, you know, when you think about, you know, everything that you've gone through, how do you approach this in creating more opportunities for your own team? Because I know there's some people that have a really tight grip on their team, like they want their people to get better, but not so good that another team poaches them, right? And that can be sometimes a difficult situation to deal with. Robin, any your perspective on this?
Education, and that can come both formal and informal by way of exposure opportunities. In a more formal way would be, you likely have to have a budget, so you make sure if you're able to put those things in the budget, so you can provide your people with opportunities when they come up, and they can be in person or virtual. There are tons of opportunities out there. You got to be careful, of course, because it's the internet, and you know, hey, if it's on the internet, it's true. But Hayako, there's a million things there. YouTube, and it's not just necessarily credit specific one like Hayako would be, but Excel, you know, Word, those kinds of things. You can. There's free things out there. If you can't put it in your budget, and more informally, bring your direct reports to appropriate meetings, internal and external. Like, for example, an industry meeting. I always take my team, which is the team of one in the US, to those industry meetings to get her exposed. She doesn't have to say anything. She can be as involved as she wants to in the beginning, but I want to transition it over to her because I want to move her into my position. I mean, that's my goal, is to be able to move on and know that this position, this department is in good hands. But as far as advice, I think everyone should learn everything that they can. And even if it doesn't seem like it's applicable to your job, you will use it somewhere, some little tidbit you pull out and you'll offer it up, and it will be the right fit for whatever your situation is. And lastly, to find your passion. If you don't love what you're doing, then move on. Even if you're good at it, always find your passion. Always be on the lookout for a new opportunity. And then you've got that other person in the wings ready to take over. And then you can feel comfortable moving on as necessary.
I think that's great. Mary.
So yeah, everything Robin said, of course. And then there's also, if you think about your team and how you can help them even on a weekly or daily basis, you have, you establish touch bases. You establish measurables and goals, and part of the measurables and goals is what you know, give me an idea of what something you want to learn, and then you set a measurable for that, or you set a goal for that. And you say, okay, so by 6 weeks from now, I want you to have read this information or whatever, however that goal is set, and then you circle back. Part of the problem that I've seen in my past as a learner is I'm handed a packet, or I'm handed a website, and then nobody ever circles me what I learned from it, or how it improved my ability to do my job. So it's important, I think, to keep those touch bases and to make sure that your team knows that you're there to help them to learn and grow. I think a lot of times it kind of hair stood up a little bit on the back of my neck when you said what you did, even though I understand it, Michelle. I don't ever want my team to feel like they can't move, learn and grow.
Yeah.
And move somewhere else. You know, one of my old managers told me that his goal in anyone he hires is that they should be better than him at doing that job. And I kind of like that, you know.
Yeah,
the other
I
thing
did too. I never understood that theory. I mean, I guess people get freaked out about their right-hand man leaving them or right-hand woman leaving them, but that's kind of what we're here to do, is to help people grow and advance and
Yes.
move on, and to
Yes.
keep that, your best people, keep them from advancing just because it's going to harm you and you'll have to backfill them is just, but it happens. It happens probably more than we realize, unfortunately. Maggie, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, to add a little more about what Robin and Mary just said, just build opportunities, involve your staff, build opportunities, learning opportunities for yourself and for your team members. If you have a budget for training, use that budget, know what your budget is, do your research online, find out what's out there. And to add to the goals is like, yeah, have your team goals, say your team goals based on the company goals. However, have individual goals. What are each member's individual goals? Where do they want to go? I have team members that are pretty young. They don't want a girl in the credit field. They want to move out to the accounting field, which is not much different, but they want to work for the finance accounting department. They're putting themselves through accounting courses, and I encourage that. I work with them and I encourage them to keep moving and learn what they want to learn. Yes, it's going to hurt my team. I'm going to have to fill them, but it's a career growth for them and it's their goal. So encourage your team members, encourage yourself to learn something new, and know that as you don't always know everything, there's always something out there to learn.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. To me, that's kind of the beauty of this credit profession, is if you can understand what this job is, you can literally go anywhere because you understand that functionality, which is ubiquitous, and it gives you just a phenomenal skill set. So even if it's not your passion, if you can learn it, go through it, it'll serve you well, not only in future jobs, but in your own personal life too, right? How many people who just can't balance a checkbook, can't pay their bills on time, don't really realize the impact of it. This is a huge opportunity to learn. Okay, so here's a question, and we've just got we got 2 more questions left on this. We've got about 12 minutes left here in our session today, and so I think the question is, I'm going to ask each of you. You've probably learned a lot over your career, so let's keep it to what is the top thing, the top lesson that you learned, and that literally helped you adapt from that point forward? What was kind of the main thing that really was kind of the aha moment, I guess maybe is a good way to put it. Mary, why don't you start us off with that?
Very early in my career, I had a great opportunity to sit down with our VP of sales, and he and I talked. We spent an afternoon talking about my role and his role and how we could weave those together. He taught me how to deal with salespeople, and he taught me about the internal customer. I always knew it, I always understood it, but I never really thought about it from that perspective because it wasn't my role. But he taught me that I need to be able to look at that bigger picture. And from that, I was able to establish what I consider to be a very successful program that works. I take it everywhere I go. It's about establishing a relationship of trust and dependability with our customers, both internal and external. What we do sometimes is a negative. That is the truth. We hold orders, we demand payment. But if we do it in a respectful way, and we do it with people who we have relationships with, it makes it easier. And honestly, my customers are more willing to work with me because I'm willing to work with them. I'm quick to respond to their requests. Same with the salespeople. And I'm not talking about just the customer base. I'm talking about the internal customers as well. If a salesperson has a question, or he challenges something, or he doesn't understand something that I've done, then I have to be able to be flexible, available, and adaptable. Because at the end of the day, we all work for the same team, and we all working toward the same goal. That is to make sure that our customers stay current, and that we continue to ship orders so that they can do their business, so they can generate more money, so they can continue to stay current. It's really, at the end of the day, that's what we do.
Yeah, well put. Maggie, what about you? What's your top aha moment?
My top aha moment. So one of the things I learned was team player. So again, touching base on what Mary said, the credit department, you're not just a credit department within your credit team. You have to be a team player within your external and internal customers. Learn your industry, learn your company. How does your operations department work? How does your warehouse work? How does your salespeople work? What do they need? Be a go-to person where, your operations, your warehouse, your salespeople can reach out to you for questions on how to get their orders out the door, and you don't have to hold those orders. So work with your team and with your organization to learn what they do and what could best grow the business, and how could you best, accomplish or set up a new customer that, probably had past not so good credit. How do you work with your salesperson, meet your salespeople, network with your salespeople. I have salespeople all over the US that I've never met before. Talk to them, get them on the conference call. So just learn how to network with your internal and external customers.
Absolutely. Rhonda.
It's a good name.
It is.
Exactly what Mary and Maggie have already mentioned. So I'll just mention the importance of owning your own career, and whichever direction it might take, and whichever direction you might want to take it, own it. It's yours, and you're the captain of it. I had a situation where we got a new boss, and he'd been there for maybe a year, and I approached him and I said, because I'd been there for 5 or 6 years without a promotion, that a title change. So I approached him and I said, hey, is this an opportunity for me? He gave me a funny look and he said, I was told that you didn't want one. So if I had let that go any longer, then I would still be a senior analyst somewhere. But
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I ever conveyed that and how it got to him, but only because I approached him and I said, hey, let's talk. Did I know that there was an issue, barrier there that I then had to take care of, get rid of, and move forward with it. And it worked. It was a couple months later that I was promoted, and we keep going from there. So own your career and find your passion for it, whatever it might be, and then go forth and do, and have fun.
That's great. Okay, we've got one last question here about what advice you would give to young professionals starting out in credit to kind of kickstart their career. And it's, I guess, a two-part question, which we kind of already touched on, important key learnings. But yeah, let's talk about, if you could speak to the up and coming credit collection professionals that are out there today and who really want to make this their career. What's kind of the number one piece of advice you'd give? Let's go back to Robin, since you're on a roll. Rhonda.
Number one. Okay, I've got about 10 number ones, but that's okay. First of all, have humility in it. Understand you are not an army of one. You can't function that way. Even if you're the only person in the department, you have outside resources. You need them. Don't hesitate to tap into that. I mean, especially as the stories that Mary and Maggie have just mentioned about how working their increasing their network because they reached out or someone reached out to them, because again, it works both ways. Ask for help, ask for resources, have thick skin, because you're going to have some situations where you're really going to need it.
Right.
But also stand your ground. I got an email one time a scathing email from our VP of sales, and it was all kinds of weird accusations. And if I were in credit, I would do this. It was nasty. So I sat for a minute and then I replied and I said, well, if you were in credit, you would blah, 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 blah. And just a couple of sentences, and I ended it with simply stay in your own lane. I CC'd my boss, who's the CFO. That was it. 10 minutes later, I get an email back from my boss. 2 words. You're fired. No, I'm kidding. No. Two words were, he's an excellent response. And then it like became a thing. I was talking to the president. He says, come with me. So we go into his office. He has this huge whiteboard, and across it in huge letters, it says, stand your own ground, or it says, stay in your own lane. And then the CEO was in my office one time and he was talking and he said, the best thing you ever did was tell so-and-so to stay in his own lane. I'm like, I didn't know what he was saying.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, don't let people, don't let anybody bully you. Now, internally and externally, look for stretch opportunities, learn everything that you can, and go in a new direction if that's what you need to do. You've got to be true to yourself. I mean, you have to live with the decisions that you make. So make sure you make the ones that are right for you. That's my one piece of best information broken into 10 parts.
I love it. Love it. And I'm glad you didn't get fired for saying that. Because
Yeah,
I
that
would
could
have
have gone either way.
Mary, what are your thoughts on that? What's your top piece of advice?
So what we do is not for everyone. It is not. I love what I do. I love credit collections. I love being a credit manager. Not everyone is going to love what we do. That's okay. You find if you find that the job is too tough, or you find that it's not something that you're comfortable with, move on. Find your bliss. Find the place where you're happy. The reality is that what we bring to the table can be a negative, and you have to be able to basically, you have to be able to take those blows sometimes, and you have to be able to gauge when it's appropriate to respond back, and when it would be better to just, quietly continue to do what you're doing. The important thing is that in what we do, you have to really love it, because it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy, and most of it is good. I would say that, especially with my group at Pretium and actually everywhere I've ever worked, the energy is usually good, but there's always going to be the angry customer or the angry VP of sales. I mean, I've been there too, and you have to be able to take those hits.
Great point. Maggie.
So just to add on, yeah, it's, keep learning, keep your career growing. If you want something, ask for it. Don't be afraid to ask for that promotion, or don't be afraid to ask your boss, what skill set do I need to move on through my next position? Let them know that you're interested in growing within the organization or outside the organization with your career. If you don't speak out, nobody's going to know. And you're just going to be that analyst sitting 5 years later in the same position, in the same chair. So speak out, let your organization know you want to grow with them. Most companies I work for, and it's been a few, they're interested in growing their people. They're more than willing to look for ways of encouraging their people and making career paths for their workers, if keeping their workers on a growing career path. So don't be afraid to speak out and ask for what you want.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal advice, right? I think especially, this is we were kind of talking informally at the beginning of this before we started about how we did a women in credit session a month or two ago, whenever it was, and that we thought, there's so much content here that we could probably do a women in credit every single month and not exhaust all these topics. And one of the things that I finally started looking at my career, like what had happened to me and where did I go right, where did I go wrong, is I finally started looking at things, and I started to make myself think, if I was a man that had worked at Dun & Bradstreet for X many years, what decision would I make? And I started looking at everything I did with that viewpoint, because I think, and I don't talk for all women or all men, but I think, there's a lot of research, right, that women, we tend to be very accommodating, yes, very polite. We're concerned about everybody getting along, as opposed to what do I want? What do I need? So just, having a different way to frame things, and not being so afraid to offend somebody, but just to say, here's the facts, here's what I'm looking for. And to be able to stand your ground. It is surprising how it actually works. It's kind of amazing. So this has actually been a phenomenal session. It looks like we're right at the top of the hour, and looks like we're getting ready to wrap it up. And I think we've kind of answered every question that's come in on our group today, but just another comment from Lisa Newberg, who's does a fabulous job over at Kane & Weiner. just kind of reiterating that, that don't forget that in accounts receivable, really, we are the revenue generator team, and that can never be overlooked. Go ahead and throw any questions you've got in the chat for the folks that are on the call. And while we're doing that, I'll just wait for any other final questions that have come in. And as we mentioned earlier, when we kicked off this session, this program today is part of a mini certification program that we're launching. And this is a discount code that by attending the session today will give you 50% off at this particular program online. And again, the rest of the program, it is a series of online tutorials that you can watch at your convenience while you're at lunch, while you're on your break, or while you're floating around the pool this weekend. And you'll get a nice certificate of achievement, as well as a nice little mini certification badge that's pretty cool, and it hangs out on your LinkedIn profile. And we also wanted to mention that we are, Hayako, we're going like omni-channel. We're doing everything. We're doing the video, the online video tutorials, which of course we've got about 150, 160 that are already there. But we've also we're pulling in all the content from Credit Today, which is an absolute incredible treasure trove of articles, surveys, downloads, checklists, you name it. There's even a job description o-matic in Credit Today. There's some cool stuff there. And we just launched, we're doing podcasts, which is kind of fun. So I think we've got Robin already on our list to participate in a podcast interview over the next 30 days or so. And so look for us. We're actually on every podcast channel: Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and some other one with the green squiggles. I don't even know what that is. But we're out there on all these different channels, and we're having some great conversations. So I also would throw it out to the audience, those that are on the call today and those that watch this session in the future. We are really interested in having folks like Rhonda, Mary, and Maggie, and Caroline really come into our world and not only just watch what we're doing, but be actively involved in it and get actively engaged in it. We think that as practitioners, people in the industry, you have a lot of value and you have a lot of stories to share that our audience really finds incredibly helpful. So we appreciate all the input on that. And question, yes, all these sessions have been recorded. You'll be able to find the live recordings. In fact, on LinkedIn Live, if you go to LinkedIn, they're probably already posted right after this thing ends. And then we'll be doing a little bit of editing, and we'll send out a link by the end of next week to all the recordings of all the 6 sessions that we had this week. And we hope that you get a chance to share them with your team, your peers, your industry group members. And looks like that's going to wrap it up. Any final comments from the ladies on our panel today? Maggie?
Go
ahead, Robin.
I just said thanks for listening. Thanks for participating.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Thank you.
Same thing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating and staying.
Great.
Yeah,
thanks,
and,
everybody.
Michelle and Caroline, thanks for putting this together.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to have you guys, and it's always a lot of fun to do these. And stay tuned. We'll be, I'm sure, having some more live events probably next month and probably every month hereafter. So join us again. And thanks to the ladies on the panel today. We really appreciate it. And thanks to our team in India as well for coordinating all this stuff. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks, you too.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
I know.